Hi, Catherine. How are you doing today?
Good. Glad to be here with you, Nan.
Me too. Today I'd really love for us to share why most equine facilitators plateau and what changes everything. And I think that you can speak directly to this, like the quiet frustration that many practitioners, including yourself, may have felt after initial training, when sessions start to feel repetitive, clients stall, or the facilitator just feels energetically drained. And I'd love for you to share with our viewers your experience and what changed everything for you.
Yeah, that absolutely happened with me. I was super excited to head into the equine world because I grew up with horses and now I get to bring them into my work and took an initial training and was really excited to do that. And then I noticed over time I was doing the same thing with my horse and my clients and started to feel a bit bored. And I could tell my horse was feeling a bit bored, probably because I was, right? And he's picking up on that.
Right.
And then what would I do? I would take another training to learn something new, to bring them,
Exactly.
which is all was all beautiful and helpful. But once I met you and I learned the water hole rituals, like it is truly the only training you will ever need. The L.H.E.A.P program is the only training you will ever need because when you're building this deep connected relationship with your horse, it's endless where it can go. It's endless for your partnership with your horse, and therefore it's endless for your client when they're building this relationship with the horse and you're teaching them to do that. Because once they have that connection, then they get to say, okay, what do I want to do with this connection? I want to, you know, try this really fun obstacle course with my horse and see if they're connected enough and they feel my leadership enough to trust me to be with me in that more challenging situation, right? So
Yeah.
it's just endless, and I'm so excited that I found this program.
So I want to ask you, where do you think that traditional equine programs fall short? Because you've taken many of those programs, right? And what is the gap between having tools, right, and knowing how to sequence transformation using the water hole rituals that we teach in this LEAP program?
Yeah, there's so many programs out there, but a lot of them teach you particular exercises to do with the client and the horse. So maybe the horse is on a halter and you're doing a grooming exercise or even a tacking up exercise where one person's blindfolded. There's all of these interesting exercises that you're doing with the horse and client that are helping the client develop insight into their patterns, which is really beautiful. But a lot of those, first of all, a lot of those I feel like uses the horse as a tool rather than is relational with the horse. And it's about the learning from that one exercise versus building a real relationship with the horse. And I know that LEAP program isn't the only program that talks about building a relationship with a horse, but I find
Sure.
it's because it's based off of learning the horse's language, it's the best way to build a relationship with a horse. And so, I believe that healing happens in relationship and change happens in relationship. Transformation happens in the context of relationship. So, if we're bringing this set of relationship skills, teaching our client to form this beautiful, healthy, fulfilling relationship with a horse, then they get to take that into all parts of their lives, whether it's their workplace or their family or they're a parent, they're bringing it to their children. It's so rich in that way. And so yeah, there's just nowhere
Yeah.
you.
And a couple weeks ago you shared with me, and it just something that came to mind when you were hosting that clinic at your place, and you were telling me about the trainer that came to you. I think that that's like a personal moment that you really um, recognized, right? That how transformational it could be, just the tiniest little thing that happens in a session. Maybe you could share that as a personal moment that really inspired you to just love this work even more, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you're bringing that up. It was such a beautiful insight from this person that was in one of my retreats who grew up with horses and is now a horse trainer. So she's around horses all of the time, working with them, relating with them in that way of riding them and training them, right? And she said at the end of the retreat that she felt back in relationship with the horses like she did when she was a kid, is back in the pure joy of relating to them and being just present with them and honoring them for, who they are as these beautiful sentient beings. And she's going to then take that and carry that with her now as a trainer. So it just meant the world for me to me. And I know it's going to impact all the horses she works with from now. So it was a really
I can
special
totally
story.
relate to that too, because, when I moved to Costa Rica, and I've told this story many times, and I rescued a herd of horses, a family herd, and they were extremely shut down and disconnected. And it was the beginning. I had been with horses my whole life too. And, it was before I met Carolyn, before I knew this work. And I was seeking a way to connect with these horses. And I was starting to figure out, like, how am I going to train them? How am I going to get them to come around? And I found Carolyn through her book, Naked Liberty. And I remember she sent a trainer, and literally within 5 days, my horses were connected, totally different horses. And it was a huge light bulb moment for me, because I realized in that week that it wasn't the horses that were checked out and shut down. It was me. And I was coming without joy, really. I mean, I loved being with the horses, but it was like there was an agenda. I needed to train them. I needed to fix them. And they were like, no, not that. We don't need that. And when I started to really, begin to regulate my nervous system and have no agenda and just be with them with joy in my heart, like a childlike way of being, right? We always talk about the child's mind and coming to horses with joy in your heart. And that was the shift. It was no agenda. So I can really relate to that story. And it's a story that repeats itself over and over and over with all of the hundreds of students I've had over the years. They realize it's like once you know, you can't not know. That's for sure.
And I think that's why this method is such a perfect match for client transformation sessions, because you're learning the language of the horse and you're allowing the horse to be a horse and relating to them from there rather than training them to do what we want, which is maybe what in other horsemanship methods. And so it's about the horse being authentically who they are, and then that gives us permission to be authentically who we are, and then we're relating from there. And that's what our
Yes.
clients need to, like, that's what they're coming to us for, right? Like, how do I be
Yes.
fully me and have beautiful relationships in the world and live the life I want to live as the full authentic expression of myself?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're all seeking that daily, all the time, right? So let's take a moment to talk about how LEAP creates progression in a client session, not just experiences, right? I love that we have a model that Carolyn put together for us through her observation of horses in nature, right? She's a wild horse behavior specialist, and she noticed that horses practice these rituals. And there's 7 rituals in the Waterhole rituals, that is part, is the core of our Liberty training program. But those first 5 are what we really focus on in LEAP, right? Which is what Carolyn named the 5 heartfelt strings of connection. And I love how you can progress a client through each one of those heartfelt strings of connection, and they're relationship based, right? So we're talking about developing a bond, we're developing trust, respect, willingness, and focus. And those 5 elements need to be present in any relationship. So it is relationship based. Any relationship that you have, you can't have a solid relationship with one of those elements missing. And if you think about your relationships, with your husband, with your children, and your friends, if you take away one of those heartfelt strings, there is a huge missing piece, right? So when we're working with clients, I would love for you to share a little bit about maybe how you bring clients through these strings of connection. Sometimes you might in a session just be working on the bond, which is a huge piece of this program, right? How we create a deep bond and how clients often feel in relationships about bonds, right? And then trust and respect and willingness and focus and the exercises that go with them progress. So it's a model that can take you on a journey with a client and not just an experience this session and then another one that session. They're growing through the experience of developing these strings of connection with the horse, and when they get this magnetic connection with the horse, it's life changing, but then they can take that into their relationships. So, why don't you talk a little bit about that? Because it's what I love the most about this way of being with horses.
Yeah, it really is progressive. And so the client really gets to see these heartfelt strings build on one another. And you mentioned, so the first heartfelt string is building the bond, which is about, being with the horses with no agenda. Well, what does that take for us, the human, and for our client? It's us being able to get still, get present, get grounded, practice that being with, right? So there's all of this beautiful nervous system regulation and work that can go into building that first string. And clients get to see the impact that has, which might seem quite simple to them at first, but the impact that their true presence has on a relationship, which is quite profound, right? And that's really the foundation for all of our relationships is being here, actually being here with the one we're wanting to relate with, right? And then once we can do that and we're more attuned to ourselves, then there's that, oh, how can I attune to myself and the other at the same time? And we're starting to say hello to the horse and build trust. And that's about, you know, the horse, it's a consent-based relationship. If I'm approaching a horse and the horse with the intention of joining the horse and the horse does not want me there, he gets to say no, and I will turn around and walk away. And that builds trust. What does that mean? It means I'm attuned to the horse's cues and energy. I want to be attuned to myself too. Maybe I don't want to walk all the way up to the horse. What boundaries are good for me? But it's being attuned in relationship. So it's building off of that bond. Then we move into, building respect. And a lot for clients, a lot of that is, what is our self-respect like? Do I feel like, do I have self-respect? Do I feel like I have the right to my boundaries, to my personal space? Can I say no? Right? So we're working with the horse to establish our own boundaries.
It's huge.
Then,
Yeah.
yeah, then we get to really step into building willingness, which is, can I step into leadership in a way where the horse wants to be with me? It's inspiring rather than leadership that's dominating or forceful. This is such a beautiful piece for people who are coming to client sessions for they want to be better leaders, right? What does it look like to be a leader where others want to follow you and are excited to follow you? And then we move into focus, right? And of course, we can't have a good relationship without focus. And I bring that into the human world with, where is our attention focused in our lives? Are we at the dinner table on our phones, or are we actually focused and present with those that we're with? And we find as a leader, right, if we're wanting to be a good leader, then we need to have those that are following us, their focus on us. So how do we get that in a way that's from a benevolent leadership place if we don't have it? And so for folks
Right.
that have a hard time stepping into leadership, that's a really beautiful one. So
It's
you can see,
empowering. That's a very empowering ritual to practice with a horse.
yeah, very empowering because you really have to step into, yes, I deserve to be focused on, right? And
Yes.
yeah, and I'm asking for that. So it just builds on each other. And once we have those five heartfelt strings, we get this gorgeous magnetic connection with the horse where the horse just wants to be with us. And then, but it doesn't end there. It's like, well, what do we do with
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
Now we have this juicy
exactly.
connection. What do I want to do with the horse now? And it just takes
Yeah.
it to the next level and the next level.
And you can liberty dance and have fun with your client. You know,
Oh,
I want to tap back into the horses world. So I didn't mention this before, but this is, how horses keep harmony in the herd. So they're practicing these rituals all day long. If you're watching a herd of horses and you understand the water rituals, you see it all day long in action. And there's a code of conduct in the herd. This is how they have stayed alive for 55 million years, right? They seek leadership, they need leadership. And when we bring that to the table, everything changes. And when we bring that to our clients, it's life changing for them. So, this work really positions Leap, I feel, as the bridge between like beginner confidence and professional mastery. I know there's a lot of programs out there. I know people are doing things with horses that are beautiful, but this is top tier horsemanship, and it really is professional mastery for facilitators. And I know that because I've watched facilitators like you present this way of being in retreats that I've had here and with their clients, and it truly is life changing. So I'm so grateful that you're here today with me, Katherine, and that we could share this work with others. So if anyone's out there that's interested in knowing more about our LEAP program, just go to carolynresnick.com. You can sign up for a discovery call, fill out an application, and we would be happy to talk to you more about possibly joining this program. So thank you, Katherine.
thank you.